Hello guys, I didn't really have time right now or don't have time right now to delve into a lot of demos and make one of those videos, so I'm gonna try my shot at making one of these rant videos where I just voice my opinion. So what I'm gonna focus on today is a solution or just an alteration to the current overtime format we have. If you just wanna click away from the video, it's basically the core idea is that there's no money, you allow the purchase of one primary and one secondary per player, so there's no economical aspect. Anyway, today's video is kind of going to be a sort of a rant or just a suggestion or the alteration of the format. I've always really enjoyed and liked people doing these kind of videos because you just voice your opinion and talk about CS. So I'm going to be trying my shot at it. But if I just explain the overtime rule itself, and these are the different things I'm going to go through in the video. So basically just a bit technical how it plays out or the rules, and this is just what I've thought up. Obviously you could alter this as well. But the core idea is that you can purchase one primary and one secondary, so you eliminate the economical aspect as I said, and the primary being everything that fits in slot 1 and secondary slot 2, so that would only be pistols and primary everything else. So for example, the possibility of 5 auto snipers in those mid doors or equivalent would be impossible. But the negative would be that this would take away, example, dropping rifles in spawn for a retake. But I think this is acceptable because what we have to keep in mind during all of this that we are in overtime, so it's going to be different circumstances. That's how overtime has been played out since the beginning of CS. That's how it's being played out in today's stage. My goal is kind of to get overtime closest to the best version or the most normal version of a gun round. And I think this is what my format achieves better than the current format. But again, it's just my opinion. You could limit the first primary just to the rifle category, but in today's meta, I don't really see what point that have, so I'm just gonna stick to one rifle and one secondary. So just of things that can go wrong and potential rules. I think, for example, misspy, I think you can just outrule that as a factor. I don't know too much about scripting, but for example, we have these warm-up scripts that you can't drop guns, so it won't flood the server. And you could just implement that. So basically, if you misbuy, you can just keep buying a rifle until you're satisfied with the one you have. So I don't think you can flood the server with just buying guns and guns again, since you have it in the warm-up configs. But if you don't understand, say you buy an M4 and you decide not to buy it, then you can just buy an AUG or you can buy a UMP and you can just run out of spawn with that. So that would eliminate the aspect of misbuys. I think this is also a really good solution to surviving members of a one round. So say you want to opt now instead of M4 last round, you can just buy it. Or if you get an AK and you want to save that, you can just keep it. So this could leave some room for error. For example, should you be able to drop guns? I mean, theoretically you wouldn't need to. But say the operator saves an AK and he wants to drop it to a rifler. So the solution I've thought up for this is that if you drop a primary or if a primary leaves your hands, you should not be allowed to buy one until you get your primary back. So you can buy anything on the buy menu as long as it stays in your hands. But if you drop it, you can change the number. So if you save an AK, you can change that AK, or you can drop it and you get an op, or you get an M4 from your teammate, or whatever. So obviously, team play involved here, but I'm mainly focusing on pro play and not really pug aspects here. So just to keep that in mind. So basically, just to reiterate, you would recycle a primary, basically. You just have a primary, you can pick whatever you want. I'm trying not to make it too complicated, but we need to keep in mind the goal we want to achieve. So this seems kind of complicated compared to the current format, but I think this is what needs to be done in order to achieve it. Because I really think it's vital to eliminate the economical and money aspect in overtime. Another opinion or problem I thought of is, for example, if you buy a gun and run out of spawn with it, and then you want to change, I don't know, pick mid with an up on dust, or wall bang the doors with the auto sniper. So what I thought about this is that after freeze time ends, you should not be allowed to change your primary. If you're AFK, for example, and you don't have a primary, you should be allowed to buy one for the additional 15 seconds it is right now in default servers. But you should not be allowed to change it after freeze time. So I don't think really, again, this is a problem at pro level, because they're sort of always on alert, and if you made it a rule, they would always, be sure to get it done. You could maybe increase freeze time a few seconds, decrease buy time, whatever you want to do about that. could affect pugs. I don't really think it would that much, but you know, unless you took in maybe an unwanted gun from last round. Maybe you increase the freeze time, you just let people get used to it, or you just don't implement it in pugs. But again, mainly just focusing on pro play. Moving on here to the utility rule, which is important since we have removed all cash. I think the nade rules should function the same way, but when you buy it, it should be like you have unlimited money, because our ultimate goal is that we're going to be on a normal or as close to normal gun round as we can. So basically, if you could buy 2 flashes, a smoke, and a molly and throw that molly and rebuy that molly during regular rounds, you should be able to do that thing. Or if you throw the molly and you can rebuy an HE, you should be allowed to do the same thing. The same thing that goes for utility goes in gun rounds, since it doesn't really have the same impact as guns. Because when you have 16k and there's 2 rounds left, you can just buy 3 ops, and you on the map such, I don't know, Overpass and Inferno, you can post as a slow default on every angle and such and so on. So that's my opinion about utility rule. I think also a very interesting or potential replacement for pistol rounds would be something like this. Obviously, it has a lot more flaws, like the surviving members would have rifles and how you deal with that. But starting on a gun round is an idea that has been tossed down, tossed around since the start of CS, and I just think it's interesting, even though it's a very controversial opinion. Moving on to the explanation part now, and here I'm sort of gonna justify my point of view and my opinion. So basically, I think that this is the best approach for overtimes. The main goal for overtimes is that you're gonna have 30 rounds summed up in halves of 3 or 5. Those are the most popular now. We have 7 rounds as well, but if you just stick to 3 and 5. And the goal should always be that we have the penultimate and we have the best version of Counter-Strike granted to both teams, and we make them as much in control of the situation as possible. In 10 or 16k, there's room to be abused or to be exploited. And when stacking up rounds in a 3-round half should not have impact. If you win those 2 rounds, the third round should not have impact. You should not be punished for losing 2 out of 3 rounds, where first to 4 rounds win. I just don't think that's fair. I don't think after having CSGO in effect for 5 or 6 years currently, I don't think this is a correct state of affairs. I think this should be fixed. Don't think it's right. You shouldn't be on in overtime. You shouldn't be against a full buy with full utility, basically being on pistols if you want nades or SMGs or Galils or whatever. You should not be forced on that buy in the third round. In 16k, you're pretty much okay if you lose the first and the second. You might not have as many nades, most likely you will have not, but again, you don't have as many nades. Why? There's no need for this. Just with a few basic rules, we can change this. Again, just my opinion. It will be a bit complicated to implement, but there's been worse things than this, and I think this is a necessary goal in order to achieve fair CS in overtime. So basically what I want is 3 gun rounds as close to normal gun rounds as possible, and this is my way of seeing to that. So the biggest negative is that you can only buy the primary per round, but if you just look at what negatives that really bring. So you don't really have to drop, or that's never going to be a factor, because everybody can buy a primary. But I think the biggest negative is probably the gun retake thing. You can't play 2 or 3 ops and have M4s for retake. This also will hurt, for example, Ts that don't like to run an op on a default. For example, if it's the last couple rounds of the T side, if we say it's Inferno, and you're liquid or whatever, and you want to run 5 AKs and you have max money, it's not uncommon to just see an op posting on banana or mid and then just forfeiting it. So I think with this in mind, what happens is not 100% what's going to occur on real gun rounds, but then again, that's not what's going on in overtime right now. So we need to take that into account as well. So I think this version of affairs, of having overtime played out, it's the most logical for me. The only real negative is that if you get an info of a gun or an op, they can't fake the amount, they're dedicated to it, and you know exactly what's going into it. So, as I said, this would probably only hurt like the guy who wants to run 5 AKs or whatever, but I think this is a small price to pay for what we're getting. I think chaining each player to the purchase of one primary, I think the positive outweighs the negatives by a large amount. So for me, the solution isn't unlimited money because of this. You can default an up or out to wherever on the map and then switch, but the current overtime format is not the closest we can get to a normal gun round. And in my opinion, and having looked over all the factors that I can see, this is a far more just system where you just get an acre, you get an op, utility is the same, and you go into the round on a level or as level of a playing field we can make it be. So just to conclude, it's pretty much a straightforward idea. The execution is going to be a bit hard for Valve, but when you're going to have a span of 4 to 6 rounds, after 30 rounds where the teams went head to head for the same amount of rounds, I see it as far more fair and logical to just eliminate the money aspect. And it's true it doesn't make it a normal gun round, but this is the closest we can get. And if just in one sentence I just tell you the best way or why I want to achieve this, is that a team that wins or loses a round in overtime, despite that they get one round closer to victory, they should not be put in a worse or a better situation, respectively. Each round in overtime needs to start on a level playing field in order to make it even and fair, because, like I said, in 3 rounds, you should not be punished for your money. There's just no reason. I can't see why you can justify this. Obviously, I'm open to other people's opinion, but I can't see why you should be punished for money in 3 round overtimes. Obviously, the problem with right now is that since you just have money, it's tournament organizers deciding it. But maybe in a year or in a few years, this format could get more exposure, more attention. And right now, I just want to let people know that this option is out there. So the discussion I sort of would like to have if this were saw as a possibility is, for example, whether or not surviving members should be allowed to purchase a primary, certain technicalities. For example, if a surviving member should be allowed to purchase extra primary, you could say the short answer to that answer would be yes, because, as a form of minor extra reward for winning the round, or no, since you need to be on a level playing field. But again, to repeat, the main goal with this, or the main goal of having overtime like this, for me, is that you should not be punished or you should not be rewarded for stacking up rounds for having money in a 3 round or 5 round or even 7 round half. That should not be a factor. And when looking over this, it's pretty ridiculous, and it's something I would have hoped the game devs would have eliminated by now. So thank you for listening to my rant. This is sort of just my opinion, and I just want to voice a POV that I haven't heard from anybody. Sorry if I stole somebody's idea. Uh, I was just thinking about this. I've thought about this for a while, and I thought, why not make a video out of it? So thank you for watching.